Om Namah Shivaya. It truly is a joy to be here with all of you. After 15 months, we've all been secluded. We've all been in our own little world. And here we find ourselves again. It's been an incredible journey to get back to where we were. And maybe we're not entirely back there yet, but I feel like this is a really great start. So I just want to say a heartfelt hello to each and every one of you. I know to some degree you have felt isolated during this time. And that we get to come together is truly a miracle. It shouldn't be, but it is. And it's a joy. And it's a joy to be able to come together here at this ashram. And that's truly a joy. And to do so on the Independence holiday. We all have made the conscious choice to take a sattvic action, to be in an ashram during this holiday time, where so many people are making rajasic or tamasic choices during this time. And I want to honor each and every one of you for your commitment to yourself, to your commitment to your physical, to your mental well-being, and to the development of your consciousness. It is no small decision to spend time in an ashram. It means that you have been listening to the whispers of your soul's voice, which getting up early is certainly one of those things that our soul whispers to us, because that truly is a beautiful thing to do. It's the quiet time, and the mind is quiet early in the morning. And I would like to acknowledge Swami Sita Ramananda, who has really just, her Shakti has held together this ashram, even from afar, from Vietnam, as she was cloistered in Vietnam for most of the pandemic. And that she had the support of the staff who are here, who were able to keep the sacredness of this space through the dedication of their sadhana. And we get to feel that when we come here. They kept the Shakti alive. And that's no small thing. Everything sort of settled down, but the vibration is still very high here in the ashram. And that's truly, truly the fruit of the labor of love, of the service, of the karma yoga, of the staff that is here. And each of us in our own way have gone through that to try to keep our own vibration elevated during this absurd time that we've shared. And as crazy as that is, there's also something special in the fact that we all shared that. I don't know each of you personally, and yet I shared the most intimate experience with all of you. This pandemic, this going within, this trauma, and we were in it together. It's like we went to war together and we just came home. There's something about it that bonds every one of us together. You have a story to tell, and you have a story, and you have a story, and I have a story. And it's all of our stories that make up this experience. We felt like we were apart, and yet we were together, going through it together. And isn't that really what life is all about? Because we're all going through life together. You've lived your life, and you've lived your life, and you've lived your life. And I've been living my life. And we've been here on this planet at the same time. And we have a story to tell. We've been going through that together. And when we realize that we are going through something together, then we're not really alone. We're all part of a greater whole. The sum total of our experience is the experience of life. And the sum total of all of our experience is being witnessed by our divine selves. And this is the purpose of life, is to have experience and to grow from that experience. That's all there is. That's all there is. There are different experiences. And you have yours, and you have yours, and you have yours. And we grow from that. How will we have grown from this pandemic? How has it transformed our idea of ourselves? It's something maybe we'll be reflecting on for a long time to come. We don't have to know the totality of that answer now, but to spend some time on that answer now, I think is very important. Spend some time in reflection on it is very important. There's no right answer either. There's the inquiry, and ultimately the realization of our divinity. But how we get from where we are to the realization of our divinity, that's the journey that we walk. Each of us individually, and we walk it individually together. We're all walking that journey. And along the way, we feel certain wounds. We have certain pain. We have certain suffering. Whether it was the suffering that we went through in the pandemic, and I'm sure you all went through some suffering in the pandemic. How could you not? Whether it was physical, whether it was emotional, whether it was existential. Yeah. We're suffering that we all went through. We went through our own suffering, and we all suffered together through it. We felt alone, but we were part of a greater whole as we were going through it. And that is the experience of everyday life. And even when there's not a pandemic, there's still suffering that each of us are going through. Whether it's physical, whether it is emotional, or whether it is existential. That's what it means to be walking in this body, in this mind. For if there was no suffering of the body, if there was no suffering of the mind, we all had perfect health and perfect peace of mind, we'd all be in the highest state of samadhi. We would be one with all of creation, and we wouldn't be living life, we would be transcending life. We would be liberated from the cycle of birth and death, but we're not. We are in the cycle of birth and death. And being in the cycle of birth and death means that there is somewhere that we are going, and there is a path that we are walking to get there. And that path may be an illusion, and where we are going may be an illusion, and yet we're walking that path. And we walk it alone, and we all walk it alone together. The feeling of separation is the primordial wound of consciousness itself. The experience of separation is the primordial wound of consciousness. Each of us experiences separation from the whole, from the oneness. Our individual soul, our jiva, enters into this body, into this mind, resides within the heart, witnesses our journey, our individual journey. My jiva, your jiva, your jiva, your jiva, your jiva is having an is witnessing an individual journey all together. All together. We are having an experience, though, of separation from the oneness, from the wholeness. That's a terrible wound, because each of us deep down inside knows that we are one. And when we have that feeling, we have nothing but unconditional love for each other. Unconditional love for all of creation. We have that. We know that inside of ourselves, that we are all one, that there is truly nothing separating us, and yet we have the experience of separation. And that experience of separation is causing us suffering. And during the pandemic, we experienced it even more, because you couldn't leave your house. And you were scared to leave your house. And that idea of being separate from the whole became even greater. The illusion of separation became even stronger. And with that, the suffering became stronger. As we journey toward wholeness and oneness and unification, the suffering is reduced. Of course, that's the path of yoga. We're all walking that path toward oneness, toward wholeness, toward unity, toward yoga. With that, the suffering is reduced. And that's the journey that we're on. That's why we come here to an ashram, is to help us to remember that we are one, to help us to remember that we are love. We are the love that we seek, because the love that we seek comes from the unity, the union. This is what we seek in every relationship, is union. Union with my friends, union with my lovers, union with my family, union with my country. We seek reunion all the time. From that union, our suffering diminishes. But all of that union is limited, because when there's my family, I'm separated from your family. When there's my country, I'm separated from your country. My friends are mine, your friends are yours, and so we have separation again. So even while I'm building unity, I'm building separation. Yoga transcends all divisions and realizes that we are all one, not just on this planet, but if there's life on other planets, on those planets too. There is no them and us. There's just one. But the primordial cause of all suffering is the illusion of our separation. And the journey of healing on the highest level is the journey toward wholeness. And as we do, as we walk that journey, we get everything that our heart has wanted. That feeling of being loved, the feeling of being able to love, just the feeling of being a part of the whole. We get everything that we want. That's what we all crave. But because we don't have that, we're caught up in the drama of life. And that's what it means to be an embodied soul, is to have the dramas of life. The pandemic was one of those dramas. The mind begins to move. The lack of awareness, it's called avidya. Avidya is the lack of awareness of our oneness, and therefore we experience separation. And that causes the mind to engage the world. And as the mind engages worldliness, it goes through stress and it goes through transformation. It's called parinama. Parinama means the transformation that occurs when the mind engages the world. That transformation is time and aging. That transformation is from being soft and supple to being rigid and hard until we break. This is what happens from the dramas of the world. They burn us out, they dry us out. And we engage those dramas because we have forgotten that we are one, that we are whole. And it's stressful. And the pandemic was stressful. So it brought in front of us our separation, and the mind engaged the drama. So many dramas, but not just that drama. How many dramas did that bring up for you and for the people you know? Money dramas, relationship dramas, maybe even behavioral dramas, because when you're kind of put into isolation for 15 months, behaviors sort of go astray too. That becomes a drama. A lot of people were drinking more. Alcohol use throughout the country went like this. Unbelievable amount of alcohol was consumed. The alcohol industry boomed during the pandemic. Now, if you wanted to make money, that was where you needed to be. Takeout drinks, you know, you could just order them and you get your margarita delivered to your doorstep. You have to put it on the doorstep and run away, then you have to come out and get it. People made behavioral choices that were disharmonious. See, when the mind engages in drama, the intellect begins to fail us. We know what we need to do in order to be well. You know that? You didn't even have to study Ayurveda. You didn't even really have to study yoga. You actually already know. You know everything you need to know. There's nothing that you don't know. It all exists inside your own heart already. There is nothing that you need to know. There is no book you need to read. There's nothing you need to know. It's all already there. The problem is accessing it. Accessing it is the difficult part. And the reason it's hard to access all that knowledge that you already have inside of you is because of all the drama going on in your mind, because you feel that separation. That separation creates the drama in the mind, and the drama in the mind causes the intellect to fail. It's called pragyaparada. Pragyaparada means a crime against your own wisdom. So you can't really access the knowledge that's in your heart. And so when it comes to taking action, we take the actions rather than those actions that will actually get us what we want, which is love, which is inner peace, which is one of the actions that wind up causing suffering. It's called Asat Mindriyarthasam Yoga. Asat Mindriyarthasam Yoga means the faulty use of our senses. When we connect to the world around us, we connect to the world around us through our senses in ways that cause us to become sick, either physically or emotionally. So when we reach for that margarita or 3, then we are causing suffering to our bodies. Why did we reach for that margarita or 3? Well, because we felt separated, The mind was engaged in drama. I couldn't hear my inner wisdom. So I made a choice, really, from a place of short-term gratification. In the moment, that seemed like a good idea. How many choices have you made that in the moment seemed like a good idea? Maybe it wasn't the margarita. Maybe for you it was something else, but you made a choice that in the moment seemed like a good idea. Short-term pleasures create long-term consequences. Ayurveda and yoga teach that all disease ultimately begins at the level of our consciousness. That's where it begins. It begins in that place of separation, where consciousness has the experience of separation. Consciousness isn't really separated ever. It has the experience because it's embodied within you. So it's having a limited experience through you witnessing your journey. That's where disease begins. That's where suffering begins. That's why the journey of yoga is to unite your individual consciousness with Paramatman, your Jivatman with Paramatman, the Supreme Soul. From that unification, all suffering disappears. And that's why we do yoga, because we're quickening that process. It can happen without yoga, but yoga quickens the process because it's a science of how to reunify. Yeah. And then, in our consciousness, it's not in the consciousness, but it's in the most subtle body that we have. All of our karma is there. So you're going through the separation that you have in part because of your karma. It was your karma to be incarnated, and it was your karma that you brought here into this world with you, which is determining to a large extent how you're going to react to the stresses that you're going to face in this world. You're going to face stress in this world. You just are. Your karma is going to determine how you react to it. Some people are going to react with fear. Some people are going to react with anger. So there's all different choices. It's not even choices. There's all different ways to react. Most of our reactions are patterns that exist within us. Those patterns have been present since birth. I have children and I've watched their patterns from the moment they were born. I was like, wow, you are very different than you are. They came in this world with them. Those patterns are called samskaras. So your karma creates those patterns, creates those samskaras, determines how you react to the world. It's hard to act in ways other than your patterns. And yet yoga empowers you to do that. Yoga empowers you to heal those patterns and to heal the karma that created it. And as you heal that karma that created those patterns, you get closer to remembering your true nature as spirit and the oneness that is inherent within you. You come closer to experiencing that reunification of your individual soul with the Supreme Soul. That's the healing of consciousness. It's an important part of your journey. It's the focus of yoga. You're doing that work when you meditate. You're doing that work when you chant in satsang. You're doing that work when you come to satsang, because it's a gathering of a community in the spirit of truth. You're doing that work, and I acknowledge you for doing that work. Showing up is doing that work. Being here is doing that work. Feeling the vibration of the mantras, feeling the vibration and participating in it is doing that work. It's shifting. The vibration is shifting your energy, and it's changing your patterns, which is why when you come to an ashram, when you leave, you act differently than before you came here. Because you're no longer acting just based on your patterns. You're now able to hear the whispers of your soul. And the soul says, go to bed early, wake up early, meditate. That's what the soul says. But mostly it's so noisy out there, you can't hear it. So you got to come somewhere where it's quiet enough to hear it again. And they go, oh yeah. It's one thing to be told, it's another thing to hear the soul's voice. That's empowering. That's empowering. And you come here to listen to the swamis because they're living this. And so just being in their presence awakens your knowledge. And listening to their words shifts your patterns. Because you have a hard time hearing your soul's voice. So when somebody who listens to their soul's voice all the time speaks, gives you counsel, gives you guidance, they're speaking for your soul. Because they're listening to theirs. And their soul and your soul are not really separated. It's just the illusion of separation. And that's what a guru is. That's what a teacher is one who can speak for the divine within you until you're able to hear the divine voice for yourself, guiding you to become so quiet that you can hear that wisdom within you, because all that knowledge is already within you. It's all there. You didn't have to listen to the words of the guru. If you could hear it within yourself, you will get there. But you have to follow your guru's instructions. And you will get there. It's all already there inside of you. All that knowledge. That's the healing of consciousness. That's where all disease begins, is forgetting our true nature as spirit. And then the mind gets sick. Everybody's mind is sick, so don't worry, you're not alone. Everybody's mind is sick. You know, because anything other than peace of mind is sickness of mind. We just have different degrees of illness. We all do. We all do. Fear is a sickness. Anxiety is a sickness. Anger is a sickness. Depression is a sickness. Jealousy, paranoia, all this that goes on in the mind is just a sickness of the mind. It's what happens when the mind gets sick. Oh, but it can be much more subtle than that. Just being unhappy is a sickness in the mind. Because when your mind is not sick, rather than unhappiness, you have deep contentment. You have joy. Joy is the natural state of your heart. Everybody, each and every one of you, no matter what your karma, no matter what your samskaras, underneath all of that, you are joy. You are. It's just trying to get back there, trying to get back to yourself. That's the journey. That's the journey. And the mind is sick. So it forgets that you are joy. And then it gets even more subtle than your own unhappiness. Because even more subtle than that is even the slightest desire for something to be other than it is. And that desire is the seed of mental sickness. The desire for something, for it to be something other than what it is. Even if I'm not happy with my circumstances, well, then I'm desiring for it to be something else. The desire is the seed within that is creating that unhappiness. Sometimes you get your desires fulfilled and you think, oh, everything is wonderful. Now I'm really happy. I got that job that I was looking forward to. So now I'm really excited because I got that job. I got that raise. I desired a raise. I got my desire fulfilled. Now I'm happy. I wasn't happy until I got the raise. I wasn't happy until I got the job. I wasn't happy till I met the right partner. But now I got the right partner. My desire has been fulfilled. I'm happy. Oh, I have simple desires. I just want some chocolate. When I get chocolate, I'll be happy. And I got chocolate. Oh, my desire has been fulfilled. The fulfillment of desire brings happiness, but unfortunately, it feeds desire. Because once one desire is fulfilled, another one bubbles up. It's like the bubbles in a soda. You can never have all your desires fulfilled, because ultimately those desires are generated by the karma that you have. And until you get rid of all your karma, you'll have more desires. So the journey of healing the mind is actually letting go of the desire for things to be different. In fact, letting go of desire. Even the desire to desire that letting go of desire. You've got to just not have the desire. Okay? It just means accepting, means witnessing. Being the witness. Because the divine essence, God, exists in everything, even in the things that you don't like. And when you can see God there, and you see that God is no different than the God that's in the things you like, then there's no duality. And when duality disappears, there's oneness. There's oneness, there's wholeness. There's no longer separation. And the cosmic wound, the primordial wound, is healing. When we can experience joy in what used to cause us pain, when we can laugh and be in joy, some would call us crazy. And yet, many saints have been called crazy because they see the illusion and they see through it. The healing of the mind is the healing of the desires. The healing of the mind is the journey to become still. Yoga is the journey to cause the mind to become still. Yoga, chitta, vritti, nirodha. Yoga is achieved when we eradicate the disturbances of the mind. So what's left when there are no disturbances? See, for there to be no disturbance, you have to be able to look at what you don't like and not react. Otherwise, it disturbs your mind. If you are a liberal, you look at conservatives and it disturbs your mind. And if you're a conservative, you look at liberals and it disturbs your mind. How can you look at that which you don't agree with and not have it disturb you? By seeing that that too is God. By seeing that the divine essence is in everything, then it won't disturb you. That's the journey we're on. It's not an easy one, not by any stretch of the imagination. Yet we need to remember that. Otherwise, what happens? We get enraged. Oh, and we had a lot to be enraged about this last 15 months. Oh yeah. You know, Bill Gates is putting those microchips in the vaccinations. I'm only kidding. He's not, but boy, can we get enraged about that? We can get paranoid and we can get enraged and we can get involved in every conspiracy. There's a lot to be enraged about. And that's what happens when we lose control of the mind. And when we lose control of the mind, we don't see the divine in all things. We go further into duality. And that's where we are today as a society. Good is all the way over here and bad is all the way over here, and everybody thinks they're good and everyone else is bad. And we're so separated as a society. We forgot how to love people who are different than ourselves. And we've lost the humility to recognize that maybe we don't know everything and maybe somebody else does know something. So with our drama, we've moved into arrogance. I'm right, you're wrong. It doesn't matter which side of the spectrum you're on. I'm right, you're wrong. Duality. Healing is unity. And the only way we can get back to unity is to start seeing the divine in each other. That's the journey. That's the journey that we're on. And when the mind gets sick, we take the actions that are disharmonious. So now we reach for those margaritas. Now we reach for the ice cream and the cake and the candy. And now we don't get up in the morning and meditate. And we start making choices that are going to create the karma of physical disease. We overeat and we create diabetes, we create heart disease, we create liver problems for ourselves, our immune system begins to fail. And before you know it, our whole body is breaking down. Ayurveda says that happens because the doshas become disturbed. Vata dosha, pitta dosha, kapha dosha. Raise your hand if you never heard the word vata, pitta, and kapha. You never did. Okay, and you never did. Ayurveda is the healing side of yoga. It's a traditional medicine from India. It's based on the idea that there are three physiological forces in our body, vata and pitta and kapha. Vata governs all the movement inside of us, neurological impulses and the heartbeat. Pitta, the metabolism, and kapha, the structure. And these are physiological forces that get disturbed when we misuse our senses. Why do we misuse our senses? Because our intellect failed. Why did our intellect fail? Because we got caught up in the drama of life. Why did we get caught up in the drama of life? Because we forgot our true nature as spirit. We were wounded by separation from the whole. We felt separate. We got caught up in the drama of life. The mind became so active, we could not hear our soul's voice. And we just took actions based on the whims of our ego to have short-term pleasures. That's what happened. And now I find myself eating foods that are highly processed, that are no good for me, that make me sick. And it's not just my sense of taste, it's all five senses. It's all five senses that I abuse and misuse. I look upon violence and I think, oh, that's fun. Let me watch another one of those movies. What am I taking in? Junk through my eyes, like I take in junk food in my mouth. And I don't know any better because I got short-term pleasure watching that violence, watching that horror movie, short-term pleasure. And what am I listening to? Violent lyrics, drama, other people's drama. Not even my own. I can get involved in somebody else's, you know? And their anger coming in my ears all day. But it gave me some pleasure. I got some pleasure listening to that violent music. I got some pleasure looking at that violence. I got some pleasure eating that junk food. You can have junk taste, junk sounds, junk sights, even junk smells. You can have junk smells. Generally, we don't like them, but some people do. You know, if you're a mechanic and you work in the shop all day, and then you're no longer in the shop, and one day you go and you visit the shop and you go, oh yeah, the smell of oil and gasoline, right. I'm home again. We can misuse our sense of smell, and we misuse our sense of touch. Yeah, we can misuse our sense of touch. We can oddly enough take pleasure in being hurt through touch. Just like junk food, just like the violence through the eyes. When we're the recipient of violence, sometimes there is actually a pleasure that comes with that on a very, very short-term level. It's hard to explain in a short period of time when that's not the focus of this talk, but just imagine a child who's being neglected entirely, and that moment when they're hit, they got the attention of their parent. And they fed off that attention. And there was a pleasure that my father paid attention to me, although it hurt. That's junk, but it might sustain me just as junk food might keep me alive. We can use our senses properly, or they can be misused and abused. They can all be used properly. We can have a loving hug and a gentle touch to let us know that we are loved. We can smell the roses. We can listen to mantra and the sounds of nature. We can look upon beauty. And we can taste beautiful organic food made to balance your doshas, your three energies, to restore your health and your well-being. That's the science of Ayurveda, is how to live in the world in a harmonious way. When we don't, Ayurveda says that our digestion is the first thing to fail us. It's the first thing. Agni. Agni is the power of your digestion. It's the first place you'll see the physical symptoms. It might be constipation. It might be loose stools. It might be a little burning when you release your stools. It might be gas and bloating. It might be cramping. That's the first place, though, that we tend to see the imbalance. And then Ayurveda says it spreads through the body from there. And it picks areas of your body that have become weak over time. And that's how disease settles into different parts of the body. And then what do? Well, we try to treat that part of the body, and we ignore the digestive system. We just treat that part of the body. Maybe we get it to go away, but the root in the digestive system is still there. So then it pops up somewhere else. It's like the weeds in a garden. You cut it down to the ground and another one pops up. Cut it down to the ground, another one pops up, and we keep getting sick because we're not getting to the root. To get to the root, we got to balance the digestive system, but to balance the ultimately, we're going to have to balance the mind. And to balance the mind, ultimately, we're going to have to remember our true nature is spirit. Because when we do that, I don't just remember my true nature as spirit, I remember yours and yours and yours. And then I just love you because you are divine. And I see no separation, I just see the spectrum of possibilities. That's all I see. Called Prakriti, the spectrum of possibilities. That's all I see. You're not different, we're all part of a whole. How could you be different? You're no more different from me than my right arm is different than my left arm. Or that my arms are different than my legs. You think my arm is angry at my legs for being different? They're part of a whole. So are you and I. But we forget that. We forget that. That's the journey of healing body, mind, and consciousness. Ayurveda and yoga provide a complete picture of how to heal body, mind, and consciousness. They can't be separated from each other. They're two sides of a coin. The head cannot be separated from the tails. The path of yoga eventually leads to the path of Ayurveda. The path of Ayurveda eventually leads to the path of yoga, because you can't really achieve the goals of either one without the other. If we say that the goal of Ayurveda is optimum health, how can there be optimum health without peace of mind? You can't have them. They go hand in hand together. They are one and the same. Optimum health doesn't mean perfect health. That's a misunderstanding. Optimum health. If I cut off my arm, I'm not going to grow a new one, but I could still be healthy. I may not be perfect in the sense that everything is perfect, but with what I've got, I've optimized it. All right? If I have a disease and I lose one of my kidneys, I can optimize my body. And I can't do that unless I have peace of mind. And I can't have peace of mind until I remember my true nature as spirit. They're all connected. They're all connected. Ayurveda and yoga. Ayurveda is the healing side of yoga. Yoga is the spiritual side of Ayurveda. Well, I hope my talk this evening has stirred something within you. We have a few moments left. I want to take your questions or your thoughts. It doesn't even have to be a question. Let's just come together. Share what has moved through you as you've heard what I've had to say. Yes. I can hear you if you speak loud.
Over there? I just did that. Okay. So 2 questions. Thank you, Dr. Halpern. First question is, everything you said seems logical, but it's also very hard. Okay. And I've got a tough life ahead of me. And I'm curious why whatever forces created nature didn't just program us out of the womb with all these things in place. It looks like we have to deprogram and reprogram ourselves. And I've always wondered, why weren't we born with the samskaras where all these things were in place? Why do we have to struggle through this, through yoga and Ayurveda together? That's my first question. And then I have a second question.
Let me answer the first question first, then I'll take your second question. So I'm going to answer this question from the perspective of a philosophy. Oh, did you not hear the question?
How did you read my mind?
I will say it for you.
Thank you.
The question is, why is it so hard? And why were we not incarnated already with the knowledge we need? Why do we have to go through the process of relearning the knowledge? Why? Why is the question? It's a great question. So I want to answer that from the perspective of the philosophy that underlies both yoga and Ayurveda. And the philosophy is called Samkhya. Samkhya philosophy teaches that all of creation exists for, I'll use the word and then I'll define it. All of creation exists for Purusha to come to know itself. Purusha is pure consciousness. Pure consciousness is infinite. It is, like I've been saying, inside of everything. It's in everything. God is in everything. The divine essence is in everything. For Purusha to come to know itself, it would have to know the totality of everything. Purusha, however, has no body, has no senses. It has no way to know. It has no way to experience anything. So it merges with pure potential for form, for matter, called prakriti. So just think of it this way. Consciousness merges with the seed, which is form. They merge together so that Purusha can come to know itself. Everything that forms now forms from that. And a little bit of Purusha will be inside of every one of you, and in fact, everything. That's your jiva. That's your soul. Atman. Your jiva Atman. Witnessing your journey. Purusha is in you witnessing your journey, and in me witnessing my journey, and you and you and you, and the plants and the insects and everything else. And the sum total of all that experience, even within the atoms and molecules of the inanimate, on this planet, in every other planet, in this dimension, in any other dimension that might exist, the sum total of all of that is Purusha getting to know itself. We are all part of a greater whole. We could say that that greater whole in Hinduism is called Brahman. In Sankhya, Brahman is the combination of Purusha and Prakriti, consciousness and matter. They merge together into all the forms and all the names. So your question was a good one. Why is it that we have to go through this journey? Because if we didn't, Purusha could not come to know itself. You wouldn't even be incarnated. Why would you be? We are only here, according to the perspective of Sankhya, to have experience. You will be incarnated and you will forget your true nature as spirit. And then the journey is to find your way home. And all along the way, Purusha is coming to know itself, which is also your Atman, your soul, getting to remember its true self. And we're all doing that. We're all doing that. So there would be no creation if there was no journey to be walked. There would only be the formless. Now we could say, why isn't there just the formless? Why isn't there? Because the nature of every potential is to express itself. That's the nature of potential. Potential does not exist, but it can be measured because it wants and it yearns to express itself. So what we call God in this system, this philosophy, Purusha, is the potential for individual consciousness, and it wants to express itself. And what we call Prakriti is the potential for matter, and it wants to express itself. So they come together, all of creation happens, and we forget. And if we don't forget, there is no experience to be had. And as we wake up, then we become one with the whole again. That's the journey that we're on. So you can think about that little bit of Purusha that is in your heart, like a drop of water. And you can think of Purusha that is out there as an ocean. And that drop will eventually make it back to the ocean. And the separation itself was an illusion. But that's the journey. And yoga is a way of quickening that journey. Does that help?
Yeah. I don't know if I can subscribe to it as the absolute truth because I don't know, but I'll buy it as
that's why I share it.
A big philosophical school.
I share it to you from that perspective of that philosophical school.
I agree.
Yes.
My second question. So essentially you said we have to go through a process of deprogramming and then reprogramming, which is what yoga and Ayurveda does. But there's also many other traditions, particularly becoming popular in California, Native American tradition, plant medicine-based traditions. And do you have any comments or thoughts on how effective they are? Because those promise rapid reprogramming.
No, the question then
overnight.
The question is about, oh, you heard it? Good, okay.
She's got selective listening.
So the question is about other paths. I like the saying, many paths, one truth. If a path leads you toward quietness inside, then you will realize the truth. Whatever path leads you within to your heart, which is where our soul is, whatever path quiets your mind, you will come to the same realizations. So for somebody, they may be drawn to a Native American tradition or a Christian tradition or any other tradition. If for that person, it truly leads to peace of mind and an open heart, which is love, then indeed they will walk that path and become one with all of creation. Yoga is the science and the art of perfecting that journey. It values the opening of the heart and the quieting of the mind. Some other traditions are not as clear about that. I find that yoga is the clearest. The yoga tradition and the yoga-related philosophies of Vedanta, of Samkhya. This to me, just me, what I'm drawn to, okay? Takes me to that quietude. So that's why I'm here. That's why I chose this path. Yeah.
Thank you, Dr. Halpern.
You're welcome. Any other thoughts moving through you? Yes. Come to the microphone. You don't have to. If you yell, I'll hear you.
I'm Yvonne. So I feel like we are the choir here, obviously. We came to ashram. So I believe in it. I think most of us believe in Ayurveda, yoga. There are many, many parts of the world or education system that totally reject this. So I think we are the minority. I really want to help the world. I'm serious. How shall we approach it? Let's say in many parts of the world, you can even say Om, such as school system in Alabama.
Sure.
They ban yoga. How do we help others?
Okay, thank you. So the question is, especially in the West, sometimes the tenets of yoga, Hinduism, are rejected, especially in schools and in certain parts of the country like Alabama and other places that see anything that is not within their tradition and anything that is different as being evil even. They will see that. Okay? So how do we deal with that? How do we work with that? I think Swami Sivananda said it very well. If you want world peace, you have to find peace within yourself. Vedanta teaches that the world is a reflection of what is happening inside of you. All you can be responsible for is what is happening inside of you. Be the peace. It sounds cliche, but be the peace that you want to see in the world. Be the quietude, be joy, be the love, and let people be inspired by that. Because when they see you thriving, they will be inspired by that. When they see you joyful, they will be inspired by your joy. They will say, why are you so joyful? And you say, well, I do this yoga. Oh, I want to know more because I want to be joyful like you. And it spreads like that. Not to everybody, but one of your 10 neighbors will say, oh, I want that. And then later another, and then later another. And it takes a long time to transform the consciousness of a planet or the consciousness of a community. But it begins with you. And this is the most we can do. We cannot be responsible for the ways other people feel. I cannot control the hate in the world. And if I even hate the hate, then all I'm doing is feeding the hate. So I have to become the love, the kindness, the compassion, the joy. And that comes from my practices of chanting Om in my home, in front of my altar. It doesn't matter if we can't do it in schools. With my children, we can do it at home. We can practice. We have freedom of religion in this society. We can do that in our homes. And we don't have to worry about being, what will other people think? And it doesn't matter what other people think. That's just drama. That's just drama that makes you feel separate from them. So when you do your practices, you'll realize that the Christians are really just trying to create the same thing you are, which is to have joy and love and peace in their hearts. And the Jews and the Muslims, they're all trying to create the same thing. We could all argue about which way is best, but let them practice their way. We'll practice our way. And that's the best teaching. That's the best teaching, is to love them. Be kind, be compassionate to them. I'm compassionate to them because I realize, I'm going through this with somebody right now in my world who's very Christian and sees this as an affront to their Christianity. So I have compassion for them and kindness for them, and realize that this is because of the way in which their brain has been taught, and it's got to do with their karma and their samskaras. And I can't be responsible for that. All I can do is be responsible for my heart, my consciousness, my actions. Any other thoughts? Yes.
So I was wondering, like from the ashram, I'm going to take back certain aspects of what I learned and bring it to my everyday life, like meditation, yoga, chanting. Are there any Ayurvedic principles that we should take back to our lives? And by that, I mean, what's the first thing you should have in the morning? What kind of food, or maybe even beyond that? So if there were ideas that you had of like things we could incorporate in our daily life.
Sure. What's an idea? What's an Ayurvedic idea that you could take home with you? Okay. First, I want to tell you that the first Ayurvedic idea that I want you to take home with you is the idea that we're all unique. And what's right for one person is not necessarily what's right for another. So you have to begin by coming to know who you are from an Ayurvedic perspective. And that's called your constitution. And you have to understand where you are out of balance today. All right, that's called your vikruti. Okay? If you know those two things, then you can be guided. There's a book I wrote called Healing Your Life, Lessons on the Path of Ayurveda. If you pick up that book, it'll help you figure that out. So all that said, what is one simple thing maybe everybody could do, almost everybody could do? Almost everybody. Start your morning with a cup of warm water and lemon rather than a cup of coffee. Okay? Rather than a cup of tea. Hot water with lemon. Start your morning that way. If that's the only thing you do, that's great. And then after that, if you want to have coffee later and tea later, go ahead. But that's a good start. You now have made one profound change in your routine. And you're going to notice a big difference in your health and your well-being because of that. It has many, many benefits to balancing your body. I hope that helps. All right. What is the last thing I do before I go to bed? Oh, Ayurvedically. I mean, I could answer it both ways. So first thing would be to drink lemon water, right? So what is the last thing you do? I think about the last thing I do in terms of winding down before I go to bed. Okay, I think that's kind of the last part of it. So it means about an hour before you go to bed, you turn off all of your media. All right, 1 hour before bed, turn off all your media, turn off your computer, turn off your television. If you're going to listen to something, don't let it be political. Okay, put on some gentle music. If you really want to make sure you sleep well, turn off the lights and light candles instead. Okay, and just sit in the calmness, or go outside and sit on the deck and look at the stars. And do that for a while before you go to bed, and your mind will calm down. And when your mind calms down, then you'll sleep well. Now, if there's so much on your mind that your mind can't calm down, then one of the things that you can do is write down what's on your mind and get it out, put it in your journal, put it away, and if you really want it, you can pick it up in the morning and read it again. Okay, but at least it's there and you don't have to think about it anymore. So if you do that, then you're going to rest better, sleep better, things like that is going to help. Now, there are some times when there are imbalances or things going on inside you that even then you can't sleep. In fact, sometimes the quiet is scary. Sometimes the quiet is really scary. That's why it's hard to meditate for some people. That's why a friend of mine once said, "You live in Nevada City? Why would you live in Nevada City? In the mountains?" He lives He grew up in New York and he lives in LA. And he says, I couldn't do that. I said, why not? He goes, because there's nothing happening there. And I need something to do. Now, that's just his drama. But what he was really scared of is the quiet. And then when people are in a place of quiet, sometimes their demons come up. Their demons are their dramas. So at night, if you're winding down, your demons might come up. That's why a lot of people watch TV until they go to bed. I don't want to face those demons. I don't want to think about that. I want to think about something else. I'll think about that movie. Okay? But even then, if you don't take care of those demons, they wake you up at 3 or 4 in the morning. They wake you up because now you're quiet and they pop up in your dreams and they wake you up. So you got to know how to deal with the demons that are inside you. And that's part of the whole journey of yoga, is to get rid of those demons inside you so that you're at peace when you go to bed. But if you need to do one thing in order to help you sleep and deal with those demons, rather than watch TV, you might want to take a warm bath and massage your feet. Demons don't like that. Oh no, not the warm bathtub and the sesame oil with the castor oil mixed in with it. Oh no, don't massage me with that. The demons scream. They run away. So take a warm bath, mix some castor oil with some sesame oil, and massage your feet and go to bed. And you'll do much better. All right. Speaking of going to bed and getting ready to go to bed, it's been a late night, and it has been a joy, truly a joy, to spend this time with all of you. And I want to thank you, Swamiji, for inviting me. I'm very honored to be able to share this time with all of you and to welcome us all back together, where we can actually see each other's faces and not be wearing masks, where we can feel each other's hearts and share in the sacred space. So many blessings to all of you as you journey toward optimum health and peace of mind. Om Namah Shivaya.
Om
Hari
Namah
Om
Shivaya.
Tat Sat.